All right, you lads. We're going to talk today about the anatomy of a Kronwall. And in looking at the Kronwall, what we're looking at is we're looking at one of the most dramatic and explosive checks in the entire game of hockey. It's a hip check of sorts, but it's really a Kronwall. Okay? And I'm going to talk about how, I'm going to talk about when, and then I'm going to talk about why, or why then when. We're going to discuss the reasons that this check is used and the reasons where it might not be used. And then times when we have something similar that doesn't have to be as dramatic, okay? So the first thing I want to look at is the how, okay? And the second the camera comes from behind the goalie, or right before he does, I want you to look at Kronwall's eyes. Well, we can't really see his eyes, but we have an idea of where his eyes are looking. And I want you to look at his skates, okay? And you can see it as it goes in motion. You're going to see that he is skating backwards, okay? But look at where his eyes are. If we go back to here, his head is watching that player. He's looking at him intently, okay? He keeps his eyes on that player. Even though he starts to turn his body, look at how his head is locked onto him, okay? He never drops his gaze. He never looks over at the wall. He never looks anywhere else but right at that player. And in many ways, what you can see is that Kronwall is looking at that player's eyes, okay? So if we back it up again, and we see right here, Kronwall knows that guy is not looking at him. His eyes, his head is turned. He's picking up a puck, okay? And we're going to talk about this in the timing in a minute, about what situations are sort of green lights to do this, okay? And so the reason I focus on his eyes is because right here, a lot of players, I think, even at higher levels, are looking at the puck. And they're thinking to themselves, I need to go and make a play on that puck. And Kronwall is not thinking anything about that puck, you can tell. He's looking directly at the other player. And again, as I said, he's looking at his eyes. He knows that player has dropped his eyes to pick up that puck. And if we watch, it's not the cleanest pickup in the world. You can see we lose sight of it, but you can see it's sort of bouncing. It kind of hops on him. I bet and he kind of has that little lean forward, like, I'm going to try to pick this up. And look at Kronwall, right? We see it cross, and then a big step right in his way, okay? And then it's lights out. Boom! Look at that. Right there, both players have both skates off the ice. And I love the player who's sitting right here, the Red Wings player. Look at him. He's going, oh! This really gets the crowd going, I can tell you that, okay? Now, I'm pretty certain if you leave your feet like that, even in the NHL today, they'll give you a penalty. He got a lot of penalties for doing this. You can't leave your feet. Now, again, this is pretty spectacular, but this right here is just straight up textbook. Now, what I want you to notice is the puck is actually right there. Kronwall could have not checked him and actually come and gotten the puck. And we'll get to this in a little bit about the functionality, the how practical it is to check this way, because oftentimes the puck will just slide right between your legs, right out onto your stick, because that was the direction that player was carrying it, okay? So if we look right here, this is where the green light starts, okay? I'd imagine this looks like it's right by the red line, right? There's the ref on the blue line, so this is right at center ice on the wall. The other team broke the puck out. It looks like The puck came to him and he kind of tipped it to himself with a little area pass, trying to get around Kronwall or get it, try to get up ice. And you can see right here, Kronwall's already decided what he's going to do. Okay, so green lights are fumbling pucks, certainly pucks in the feet. Okay, also like this where it's just a little out of reach and the player's dropped his eyes for a brief second to try to get control of that puck. But I want you to notice that Kronwall's already going. He's already in his checking posture. He's leaning way over and he's firing out backwards crossovers. 1, 2, 3, and then he just steps right there. That's the key right there. See it? See how he steps with his left foot and plants his left foot. That's the key. Because what happens when you step and put all your weight on that left foot, on that lead foot that's closest to them, is they run into a wall. They just run smack into a wall that isn't the wall, it's you. And his momentum just goes to a halt right there, okay? There's another one on an Oilers player that I think is actually a better view of the hit, of how violent it is. But I want you guys to just keep watching that step. We're going to work on that. The technique is wide, 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 step wide and lean, and you got him, right? Okay. We also want to focus on the timing, and we'll get to that as we go once we get the technique down, okay? I want to look at another play that is another famous Kronwall style hit, but this view we're going to get from up above, and we're going to get to see what we can't see in the Kronwall hit, okay? The other one that I showed you, because we don't have the camera angle. This camera angle shows us what also gives us a green light, okay? And so what we have is we have Brad Marchand screaming up the ice. He picked the puck up around the net, from behind the net, and he's coming and hard. And he's super fast and super shifty, okay? And then as he gets across the blue line, here comes a guided missile in PK Subban that just gives him a Kronwall in center ice. I'll show it to you at full speed and watch what happens. Boom! Look at that. Bang, right? Okay, so here we can see now a better view of the style of crossovers that he's doing. And look at how his head is fixated on Marchand. 1, 2, and then step. And he steps right out in front of him, okay? Now, he didn't step as big, as far as Kronwall did, but you can see him step right there with his right foot, which is the closest to the player. He's got his hip down and his shoulders back. I mean, this is just unreal. Again, both players, both feet off the ice. And I can tell you, Marchand got up slow and went to the bench, okay, shaking his head. Okay, so let's back this up. Even as cool as that is, let's take a look at what I wanted to show you with this higher up view. Okay, so when we pick up this play from that higher view, what do we see? We see a Habs player right at the red line, or just inside the red line, is giving Marchand a little bit of flack, right? He really doesn't do much. He actually just sort of reaches out and gives him a slap on the hands. It's kind of a half-assed kind of forecheck, but we don't know the momentum here. We kind of pick it up. But notice there that Marchand sort of loses the puck briefly, okay? This is where you can see, if you look over in the corner by that thumbs up sign, you can see Marchand is already making his run. He's already started to lean, and he's already started firing out those backwards crossovers, okay? Now, we can't see it here, and it was probably ever so brief, but I bet you when Marchand reached out for that puck right there, he dropped his eyes. Now, he's still a decent ways away from Subban, and that's what makes the timing of this so spectacular, is that it's hard to do, but when you do it, it just looks incredible, right? So he's 15, 20 feet away from Marchand before he closes that gap. And we'll talk more about this in a bit, about closing the gap. there's a perception issue that happens to a person who's skating at you very quickly, especially if they're used to seeing a defenseman sort of backing up. So Marchand glances down right now, and he knows right about here how much gap Subban has given him. He glances down to look at the puck, and when he looks back up, that gap is way, way different than it was a moment ago. Look at the size. Look at that versus that. And you think about how fast that closing rate is. Okay? And this is important even if we're not gonna Kronwall or Subban somebody like this. We have to understand that if we can pick up space, if we can close space without them knowing it, without them seeing it, we're way, way better off in terms of catching them by surprise, right? And this is what happens. And you say, well, how could Brad Marchand, of all people, get caught like that? Well, he glanced down, and across from him was a world-class defender who knows the timing and knows the spacing. But look what else Subban knows. Let's count the Habs players. 1, 2, 3, and then there's one that's right there by the dislike sign. You see it? His stick is right there. You can barely see him. I think he pokes in right there, right? There's 4 Habs players surrounding the puck. They've got Marchand corralled. This guy over here, this weak side guy, who's just Bruins player who's just crossing the blue line, he's not really in the play. And so then watch what happens. Subban lights him up, and look at the puck just kind of drifts lazily back to that Habs player who's not even really back checking hard. So they've got their box structure intact in the neutral zone and into their own zone, and that gives Subban the green light to do it. Let's say the forechecker wasn't there and didn't have any opportunity to slow Marchand down or make him look down at the puck. He might not have done it. Let's say the center player that's in the middle of the ice wasn't there. He might not have done it. And certainly if he was by himself and didn't have a D partner with him, he might not have done it. Okay? So if we go back to the Kronwall, what we don't know here is what's going on over to Kronwall's right. Who's in the center of the ice? Does he have a D partner back there? Is there a centerman that's mirroring the puck, that's coming in and back checking? We know there's one guy all the way down there that's not. Okay, so, but he knows that there's a green light here because he has support. So the biggest thing that we can learn from these guys is that they're ready to do it, and they're always in this posture. They're in this back to the boards, butt to the wall, working their backwards crossovers to get speed to lay checks. And again, he doesn't have to really Kronwall him right here, like really light him up. Even just getting here and being able to recover and close that gap and swing back around and continue to play defense, not in a check, is a really, really valuable skill that we'll go over, okay? And then if I go back to the Marchand one, I want you to watch how right here, look at the strong side defenseman or the weak side defenseman. Look at where he is, right? He's right in the middle of the ice. He knows he doesn't have to do anything, that Subban's going to go after this guy, and that guy has no support, right? He outkicked his coverage. He left the guy at the red line, the Bruins player there, and he left his other player. He's not really in any position. He's not in a dangerous position, so we set about lighting this guy up. Does that make sense?